Well, it was 2002, and I just arrived on campus at Johnson University in Knoxville, Tennessee for my freshman year of Bible college. Filled with mixed emotions kind of running through my body. Many of you graduating seniors getting ready to go off to college for the first time. You know, or you're about to know what I'm talking about. Nerves, a little bit of fear, but mainly excitement. I was finally a Johnson Bible College preacher. Now, preacher was not my major. Preacher was the school's mascot. Can't make this stuff up, man. Christians are weird, I'm telling you. Like most colleges, it's like a knight, an eagle, a bear, a tiger. Oh, no. We were the Johnson Bible College preachers. Because there's nothing more intimidating than a fat guy in a suit running up and down the basketball court, waving a King James Bible, trying to hype up the crowd. We didn't really have a mascot, but we were the preacher. Since then, about 10 years ago, they changed their mascot. They're now the Johnson University Royals, so that's good. But in 2002, I moved onto the campus 2 weeks before the fall semester started for early fall basketball conditioning. Now, before you get too excited, you're like, dang, Pastor played collegiate basketball? Okay. It was NCCAA. That was our division. If you don't know what that means, let me explain it to you. You have NCAA, D1, D2, D3, NAIA. Then below that is NCCAA. Below that is the College League for homeschool kids. That's how bad it was, all right? But I loved it, man. I didn't care. I loved it. For 2 years, I played. I traveled the country, met some of my best friends. I had incredible memories. One of my best friends, though, I met on the team. His name was Josh Teagarden. Everybody just called him Teagarden. For about 6 months, I didn't even know he had a first name. He was that kind of guy. I just called him by his last name. Now, I need to give you a visual of what Josh looked like, okay? 19, 18 years old. He was a man amongst boys. Like a full-grown dark beard, 6'4", built like a linebacker. This brother had muscles in places that I don't even have places. Are you with me? Like this was Josh. His hand could swallow my hands. First time I met him, true story, not embellishing, was actually in the weight room. First time I saw him was in the weight room. And you know how some people like go to the weight room and they're just like doing bro session? Not this dude. He was like weight training. And then after his weight training session was over, he proceeds to get on the treadmill. But before he did, he goes to his gym bag, pulls out a 50-gallon trash bag, like the black kind that you use for your yard waste. Okay, cuts a hole in the top, puts it over his body, and then runs for 30 minutes just to sweat more on a treadmill with a trash bag over him. Like in the words of Kendrick Lamar, they not like us. That was him, man. Like this dude was on a whole nother level. So it wasn't any surprise when we go out for the basketball team and he makes the team. To say that I was intimidated by Josh isn't actually true. I was afraid of him. All right, this brother was like a rebounding juggernaut, a defensive threat. But it was on that team that freshman year that we developed a friendship. It really started when the two of us won an in-team competition. So our coach basically threw this competition out to the team, and the top two winners got really good seats to an NBA game where we got to watch the number one overall NBA 2002 draft pick. Remember who it was? This up-and-coming senior out of high school in the middle of Ohio, drafted to the Cleveland Cavaliers. I think his name is LeBron James. No, I got a goat right there. Let's go. 8:30 gave me more love than that. That's okay. So it was actually on that trip where we got to go watch LeBron play his freshman year that I realized, man, this is my kind of guy. You ever met a friend and you just gel? Like they get your humor, they get your sarcasm, and you're like, all right, you're gonna be my people. That was Teagarden. So after our freshman year was over, Josh went to Kentucky to do an internship at his dad's church where his father pastored. I stayed in Knoxville to work with an inner city youth ministry program there. And about, midway through the summer, on a random day, I get a phone call from my coach. This was not normal. So I pick up the phone and I said, hey, what's up, coach? And a quiver in his voice, he said, did you hear what happened to Teagarden? I said, what are you talking about? I just talked to him about a week ago. He's up in Kentucky doing an internship with his dad. And after about 10 seconds of silence, all I heard on the other line was, Josh is dead. I remember pulling the phone away like, come on, is this a joke? Come on, I just talked to him like 4 or 5 days ago. Josh, larger than life, muscles in places that I don't have places, dedicating to serve the Lord on him, at his father's home church. There has to be a mistake. We'll come to find out Josh was on a summer mission trip leading a group of high school students to a camp in Indiana. It was a camp that really served children who were born blind. And a couple weeks prior, there was a big storm that rolled through. So part of Josh's team's responsibility was to clean up the campus, one of which was to remove all these fallen trees. Well, there was one tree, as they're cutting it down, for whatever reason, it got stuck. It wouldn't quite fall over. So Josh's father, who was on the trip with him, goes back to the shed, grabs the tractor and the appropriate tools required. Meanwhile, Josh is standing out in front of the tree, making sure that no one else is in harm's way, when all of a sudden, a freak accident, the tree dislodges and hits him right in the back of the head. He never saw it coming. Instantly brain dead in front of his dad and a group of high school students. They would airlift him to a local hospital where for the next 3 days he would fight for his life but would never recover any brain activity until they finally pronounced him dead. I'll never forget going to the funeral. About a week later, I go to the funeral, and I'll be honest with you, I was not prepared for what I was about to experience as I walk into his dad's church, and I walk down the aisle, and there's my buddy laying in a casket, y'all. And I look over, and I'm like, I'm not prepared for this. And he was wearing a hat because of the trauma-endorsed contusion on the back of his head. But it wasn't just any hat, it was his favorite hat. How do I know this? Because I gave him the hat. Throughout the semester, he would always come into my room 2-3 times a week and be like, yo, can I borrow that hat? Can I borrow that hat? And finally, I'm like, brother, just take the hat. And that's the hat that his parents chose for their son's burial that is still remaining 6 feet under the ground to this day right now. I wasn't prepared for that. After the service was over, we go to the graveside, and his family finishes up the service, and we're all leaving, and his mom is there hugging the casket, screaming and crying. I wasn't prepared for that. I remember I get in my car, I'm driving back to Tennessee. It's just me and God, some windshield time. And I just remember yelling out, why, God? God, why? Like, what is the purpose of this? I mean, here's a man, he's 19 years old, larger than life, dedicated to serving you on a mission trip in front of his own dad and a bunch of high school students. I mean, God, you must have missed this one. Maybe you were too busy dealing with other evil issues in the earth, but I'm telling you, God, this one slipped through your hands. Why? Have you ever been so honest with God that it scares you? That's where I was on my 3-hour drive back to Tennessee. Why, God? And I'm willing to guess that every single person in this room and everybody watching online, you've had a moment like that as well. Whether it's the 27 lives that were lost at Camp Mystic in Texas, children and staff gone, or senseless school shootings that seem to happen all around the country, or maybe a diagnosis that you have recently received. Or maybe it's deep depression, chronic depression that you can't even get out of bed and you've asked the Lord to deliver you, but it's still inside of you. Or maybe you had to deliver a stillborn birth when everything in the pregnancy was going great all the way up until the final moments and you're left. Why, God? Well, that's exactly the question that we're going to talk about today in part 4 of our series On the Table. Here's kind of what we're going to go after today. The question on the table is, how can a good God allow pain and suffering? So when we did our Easter survey back at Easter time, you guys got to actually create the content for this series, and great job, by the way. You've made my job hard. We've been having to answer these tough questions about God, faith, and the Bible, and this probably won't surprise you, but this was, hands down, the number one question that was asked. I think it's an interesting question. I think the nature of the question is interesting, like good God, pain, and suffering. It's almost like in our minds we have a hard time reconciling these two, good and pain, like these two can't coexist. Have you ever wondered, like, why didn't God just create a perfect world, right? With no pain and no suffering? The answer is he did. It's called the Garden of Eden, Genesis 1-3. Have you ever thought about this? We couldn't even get out of the first 3 chapters without screwing it up. Like our own free will choice, we decided we know better than God, so we rebelled. Therefore, sin and curse and disease and death entered into the world when it was never God's original plan. And now you and I are living in the consequences of the decisions that Adam and Eve made all the way back in the book of Genesis. And so part of the reason why we experience pain and suffering is because of that brokenness. So maybe you're experiencing what I would call moral evil. Like this is evil because of moral choices that you and I get in our free will. So I can make a choice tonight to go over to my buddy's house, have a few too many old fashions, get behind the wheel of a car and hit your kid. I can use my free will, moral choice to cause harm and affliction onto you. That's moral evil because of the world we live in. But then there's natural evil. Like this is storms and floods and hurricanes and tsunamis and disease and sickness and abnormalities that we live, church, in a fallen, broken, it's growing. Even if you don't believe in God, you see this. Like the earth is crying and groaning and aching because of the brokenness we live in. Now, I know your follow-up question, because I've wondered it too. Okay, well then explain, why did God create Satan? Yeah, tackle that one. Because if God doesn't create Satan, then there's nobody in the garden to tempt Adam and Eve. Therefore, they would not have rebelled against God. Therefore, we would still be living in the Garden of Eden in perfect harmony. Okay? Did you know, I want you to think about this theologically for a second, okay? Did you know that God did not create Satan? Now go with me. God created Lucifer, an angel. Isaiah 14 says this angel was perfect in all of his ways. Lucifer, when you study the Bible, was the worship leader over the worshipers in heaven. And because there's free will choice in heaven, Lucifer decided, I don't want to worship God anymore. There has to be choice in order for there to be love, in order for there to be worship. If not, it's robotic. And so God gives even the angels choices, and Lucifer, I guess, said, hey, I'm going to stage a coup. We're going to overthrow the throne. And he tries to get some angels and knock God off his throne, which God laughed and said, I will not be dethroned. Jesus confirmed this in the Gospels. He said, I saw Satan fall like lightning. Remember that verse? He's like, I was there when Dad kicked him out, and it wasn't a fight. There wasn't really even an argument. It happened in an instant, and he fell to the ground and to hell and to the earth. So Satan is the nickname of the fallen angel, Lucifer. God did not create evil. Evil is the byproduct of the absence of the will of God. Are we tracking? And so God did create perfection in a world with no pain. In church, he will create it again. So hold your head up high. Do not lose hope. For those of us that are in Christ Jesus, there will be a new heaven and a new earth that one day will be your reality just as much as you're sitting in this room right now. And I'm telling you, on that day, he will wipe away every tear from your eye, every sorrow from your heart, every pain you've ever experienced, and he will give back to you all that you've lost. For what Adam and Eve messed up in the garden, Jesus made right on the cross. And the fact I'm preaching here that the tomb is empty tells me that I am victorious in Christ. Come on, let your faith rise up here. That yes, there's pain and suffering, but in the end, we win. So don't lose hope. But the question is still on the table. How could God allow this to happen? I think what we're really asking though is, what's the purpose of pain? And so to kind of answer that today, I want to take you to the book of Job. If you got a Bible, a phone, go with me to the book of Job. We're gonna do a little Bible study today, if you don't mind. We're gonna look at this ancient character in the Bible named Job. Now, as you're turning there, I gotta be honest with you, man. Job is it's a gritty, grimy book. Like, it is filled with loss, tragedy, death, suicidal thoughts, deep anger towards God. Like, if I'm trying to convince people that the God of the Bible is real, I'm not including the book of Job. Nobody reads Job and goes, sign me up for that. But you know why it's in there? I believe it's in there because it actually happened. And this is what I love about the Bible. The Bible always presents life as it actually is. And today, we're going to learn a little bit on the purpose of pain through the story of Job. So Job chapter 1, starting in verse 1. If you're ready, shout, I'm ready. All right, you said it. If you get mad, you remember you said it. Here we go. There once was a man named Job who lived in the land of Uz. He was blameless, a man of complete integrity. He feared God and stayed away from evil. Job had 7 sons and 3 daughters. He owned 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 team of oxen. A team is 2, so 1,000 oxen, and 500 female donkeys. He also had many servants. He was, in fact, the richest person in the entire area. He had Job's sons would take turns preparing feasts in their homes, and they would also invite their 3 sisters to celebrate with them. And when these celebrations ended, sometimes after several days, Job would purify his children. He would get up early in the morning. He would offer up a burnt offering for each of them. For Job said to himself, perhaps my children have sinned and have cursed God in their hearts. This was Job's, notice this, regular practice. All right, so here's what the text is telling us about Job. The text is telling us that Job was the man. This brother was living the life. It did not get better than the person of Job. He feared the Lord, loved God, blameless in all of his ways, a man of integrity, was not easily swayed by the world's agenda. He was so wealthy with his cattle and his ox and his camels. He had the biggest house up on the hill. And if that's not good enough, Job and Mrs. Job were doing pretty good in the lovemaking department. I mean, 10 kids, y'all, 10. And not just 10 children. These kids, as grown adults, liked each other. Some of you are like, that's the miracle right there, man. I got 2 kids and they can't stand each other. He had 10, and they're throwing parties, and they're spending up to weeks together at a time. And then if Job couldn't be any more of a man of God and a family man, it says that he gets up early every day, prays for each of his children by name, offers up sacrifices on their behalf just in case they sinned against God. This would be like a man today who loves the Lord, gets up really early in the morning, spends time in deep Bible study and fellowship, makes breakfast for the family, cleans up the dishes, gets in his car, drives to the company that he started that's now a Fortune 500 company. Very wealthy, started his own career, stewarded his money so well that he's very generous, lives on the biggest house on the lake with all the toys and all the boats and not just the material stuff, but his relationship, his wife has always been first. They take trips together. They're still passionate. The children still come home, even though they don't have to. They still want to be around mom and dad. But then on Sunday mornings, you know where you would find this man? Serving at the local church, man. Getting here early on campus, setting out flags and cones and 8-frame signs, putting on a parking vest, parking your car, because there's no serve job that's too low for him. But then in the summertime, he goes and serves on mission trips, probably wears a Forrest Frank Child of God t-shirt and a WWJD bracelet just to let everybody know that he loves him some Jesus. It doesn't get better than Job. Why am I telling you this? Because there is a belief in Job's day, and it is a belief in our day today, that God only blesses good people. This is like Eastern karma. Now, you're an educated person. You would probably never say, I fully believe in karma, but I wonder subconsciously if we do. Yeah, so like when my life is good and up and to the right and business is great and the kids are getting along and the marriage is passionate, it must be because God's rewarding me. I mean, I've had a couple good weeks, y'all. I'm not gonna lie. I read the Bible 3 times this week. Yeah, I mean, man, when I got cut off in traffic, I didn't give my normal 5 cuss words. I just gave 1. Look at God, won't he do it? Blessing me. Because I'm such a good person. But then on the other side, when life isn't good, when the marriage isn't great, you lost the job, the diagnosis comes in, the air conditioner goes out in your house because it's been 97 degrees for 17 days in a row, you start to think God's punishing you. Well, it must be because I'm not doing enough. Or sin in my past, it's haunting me. God's getting back at me. Please hear my heart. If that is your view of God, that is so warped. That is not how God works. You know how I know this? Job. Remember just a second ago, it doesn't get any better than Job? Well, if you think God only blesses good people, hold on to that because you're about to lose it. Verse 8, as the text goes on. Then the Lord asked Satan, have you noticed my servant Job? He's one of the finest men in all the earth. He's blameless, a man of complete integrity, fears God, stays away from evil. And Satan's like, yeah, I know about him. Yeah. Job has a good reason to fear you, God. Verse 10, you have made him prosper in everything that he does. Look how rich he is. But reach out and take away everything that he has, and he will surely curse you to your face. All right. You may test him, the Lord said to Satan. Do whatever you want to do with everything that he possesses, but do not harm him physically. So Satan left the Lord's presence. A lot of us have a really hard time with what I just read. This idea that God and Satan are in a dialogue together. And there's so many theological implications that I could share with you, but I think what matters the most is Satan is basically looking at God going, well, of course he loves you. Look how you've blessed him. It's easy to love and worship you when you're blessed. And you know what's crazy about this, scary about this? Satan's right. Anybody can worship God when life is great. Anybody can sing his praises when everything that is in your control is in your control. Anybody can do that. And so Satan is basically accusing God that people aren't really free. What you're doing is you're bribing them and buying their love and their affection. So here's what we should do, God. I bet if you take away everything he has, he surely will curse you. And God says, okay. But here's the parameters. Don't kill him. When you read the rest of chapter 1, in one day Job will get 4 knocks at the door. One day, 4 knocks. It's the 4 phone calls, the 4 knocks that nobody ever wants to get. And one day he lost everything. He lost his sheep and his cattle, which represents his wealth. He lost his servants, which represent his status. His house was destroyed. And then his children, all 10 children died in a storm. One day. Church, this is insurmountable, unimaginable pain that Job endured on that day. Now, don't worry. This is not the part of the sermon where the pastor looks at you and says, you don't know pain. You ever heard that sermon? You don't know pain until you've walked one day in Job's shoes. You haven't lost everything in a day, so you need to take a tablespoon of suck it up and get out there and quit complaining. You're like, wow, where'd you get your pastor degree? Like, Uncompassion University? Like, what in the, like, we're not gonna do that. Like, listen, your pain is your pain. We have gotta stop trying to outpain one another. You ever met that person? They love to like one-up you. You sit next to them right now. You know, like tomorrow morning, you're gonna go into the office, and let's say you have like a cut on your hand, and you have a little bandage wrapped around your hand, and that guy will walk into your office door and he'll say, hey, notice you got a bandage on your hand, what happened? And you're like, oh yeah, man, it was crazy. Last night I was helping with dinner and I was cutting tomatoes with my brand new Jinsu knife. You know the kind from the infomercial? The one that can cut through a quarter? So there I was cutting tomatoes. Then I thought, let's try the quarters. I sat down at my table, I'm cutting a roll of quarters. It was awesome. But then the knife slipped and it gouged my hand and lost a lot of blood, about a 1/4 inch deep. Had to get 18 stitches. I'm in a lot of pain today. And they're like, oh, you call that pain? That's not pain. You see this arm right here? It's fake. That's right. Because last summer I was in the Congo jungles of the Amazon trying to reach unchurched people groups with the gospel when all of a sudden out of nowhere a windstorm blew up and a tree fell over and pinned my arm to the ground because I was trying to save some orphan child. So you know what I did? I reached into my pocket and pulled out a butter knife and I chopped and sawed my arm off. And then I reached and grabbed a branch and stuck it in the socket, put the orphan on my back, and I hiked 14 miles out of that jungle just to be saved. You don't know pain. Whew, you're like, you okay? Like, you win. Like, why are we doing this? And ladies, you're not off the hook. You do the same thing too. Yeah, oh man, I'm gonna get in trouble for this. You ever been in a circle with women who are sharing about their childbirth experience? Should I just stop, men? Should I just stop? I'm gonna keep going. I got permission from a lady on the front. I'm gonna keep going. So it typically goes like this. You got the one mom, she'll kind of start off. She's probably a first-time mother, and she's talking about her birthing experience. She's like, yeah, man, it was really crazy. It was painful. You know, I barely made it to the hospital. When I got there, I was, 70% effaced, 8 centimeters dilated. I finally got the epidural, had to labor for 10 hours until the baby finally came out. It was really hard for about 10 days after. And another mom speaks up, oh, you got an epidural? That must have been nice. I gave birth to all 6 of my children, all natural. That's right. You know my youngest, Henry? Yeah, he created a record in the hospital, 19 pounds. Do you know what it's like to push out a 19-pound bowling ball out of your body? You don't know pain. And then another mom speaks up. Oh, you gave birth in a hospital? Must have been comfortable. I gave birth to my kids in my house in the dead of winter with 2 feet of snow outside by myself. That's right. On my kitchen table, I pushed and I caught the baby, cut the umbilical cord, and performed the circumcision right there in the kitchen room. You're like, whoa. Okay, I have no right to speak about this, all right, because I will never birth a child and push that out of my body. But here's my motto, ladies. If drugs are available, give me the drugs. Give me... Okay, we'll move on. But we do this. We try to you don't know what that pain really is like. And I just feel like you need somebody, maybe a pastor, somebody to tell you that your pain is your pain. Hey, you don't need people to validate what you're going through. But also, do not identify with your pain for too long. If you wear it too long, you will start to become it. Job had the worst day of his life, going through something that I pray none of us will ever have to go through. And if you're in the middle of it right now, I want to give you a resource. We've been doing this every week with our series. We're calling it our Summer Book Club. The book that I would recommend to read is a book called You'll Get Through This by Max Lucado. It's an incredible journey through the life of Joseph in the Old Testament, a story of unexpected path to God's beautiful plan. And so what I want to do with the remaining time we have is to talk about the purpose of pain. Let me kind of give you three thoughts to think about. Number one, what is the purpose of this? Number one, I would say pain is an essential component to our most satisfying desires. Why would a good God allow pain and suffering? Well, pain is an essential component to our most satisfying desires. I need you to write that down or take a picture. That's a little bit of a mind bender. But the reason why Job hurt so deeply is because he loved so deeply. Like when you love and open your life to love, you are simultaneously opening your life to pain and suffering. Like one of my most satisfying desires right now that I love, and one of my joys of my life is raising my kids. I love it. I love it. But I know there's a day coming, and I'm probably not willing to admit it sooner than I realize, when there's gonna be some teenage boy who's gonna knock on my door, trying to take out one of my girls. I'm gonna open up that door, he's gonna have a little bit of peach fuzz on the top of his lip, and a souped up Honda in my driveway with a spoiler that looks like the tail wing of a plane. I'm gonna watch him take my girl out on a date. And that's gonna be painful, but I'm telling you, it is worth, because of the love and the joy of being a dad to these kids. That pain really is an essential component to our most satisfying desires. Church, I love my wife, Emily. I love her, like crazy in love with her. I can't imagine this world without her. Matter of fact, this coming up Tuesday, we're celebrating 19 years in marriage. Your boy's been married 19 years. There is a God, if you know me. 19 years. But you know what I know? One day she's gonna die. I don't know if it's a week from now or 50 years from now. But what I do know is when that day comes, it will probably be one of the most, if not the hardest day, deep, agonizing day of my life. But I wouldn't trade it for the world, for the love and the life that we get to share. Pain is an essential component of our most satisfying desires. I'll give you the guide to live a pain-free life. You ready? Never love, never marry, never have kids, don't care about anybody, move to Montana, work the land, and stay in your nightgown all day, and then just die. But that's no way to live. Like God wants you to experience the fullness of life and relationships, and with love comes hurt and loss and pain and suffering. So how will Job respond? Let's look back at the text. It says this: naked, he said, I came from my mother's womb. And naked I will depart. The Lord gave and the Lord has taken away. May the name of the Lord be praised. In all of this, Job did not sin by charging God with wrongdoing. His response to losing everything was worship. And here's the second purpose of pain, number two, and that is that pain precedes growth. Pain precedes growth. I mean, the level of spiritual growth that just took place in Job's life is unreal that he chose to worship God. See, pain is inevitable, but growth is always optional. Just because you go through it doesn't mean you're gonna grow from it. And I'm willing to guess, like if I was to sit down with each of you and kind of survey your life and ask you, do you wanna grow? Everybody in this room would be like, yeah, I wanna grow. Shoot, I don't wanna arrive. I don't wanna be stagnant. I don't wanna be complacent. I got areas, I got levels, I got hills, I got heights. I got things that I wanna do in this life, and that's great. But very few people actually are willing to endure the pain that leads to the growth. Isn't this true? It's like we would much rather back out because the pain comes. So I want the muscles, but I'm not willing to endure the pain of the gym. I wanna lose weight and feel healthy, but I'm not willing to be consistent with the nutrition plan. I would much rather in my marriage just leave the marriage than go through the pain of the counseling office. Which, by the way, this is not my notes, but this is in my heart. Did you know that the average we spend on a wedding today in 2025 is $30,000? 30 grand for a wedding. So we'll spend 30 grand to get married, but we won't spend a couple $100 or $1,000 a year to stay married. What does that say? You know what it says? I don't want to endure the pain. So you know what I'm gonna do? I'm just gonna buy a ticket, go to a Coldplay concert, have an affair. It's too easy, man. It's too easy. Then actually fight for the marriage and go to counseling and make my spouse a priority. So what I'll do is I'll just start over. because I don't want to endure the pain that is required with it. Or I want to be financially free, but I'm not willing to do the things that get out of debt. So here's where I'm going with this. So some of you today, you are ready to give up. Like you're on the verge of giving up. You're gonna give up on your spouse. You're gonna give up on your teenager that you think is just acting wild and they might as well, they're just gonna live their life. Some of you might even be ready to give up on yourself. And here's what I would tell you before you give up. Pain provides an opportunity for growth that comfort cannot give to you. I'm gonna say it for the additional seating room. Pain provides an opportunity for growth that comfort cannot give to you, that there are things that God is trying to develop inside of you. And often the delivery system of that growth is called pain. I mean, how else can you learn trusting God if you're never put in a situation to actually trust God? How else can you grow your character if your character is never tested? How else can you grow your faith if everything is always in your control? And I know you're like, Pastor, my goodness, can you be a little more encouraging? Can you be a little more positive? Yes, I am positive. You are gonna go through pain. And not everybody is gonna grow from it, but it does precede growth. And if anybody's lived, they're gonna say that's just true. Here's the final thing here. The reason why God maybe allows us to experience pain. Number 3, pain reveals trust. Nothing reveals where you've placed your trust. You might use the word faith more than seasons that feel like your life is out of control. Augustine described life in this world as having your face pressed against a stained glass window. Like for the most part, you can see a little bit of color, but all you can really see are the cracks. And when you're living in the pain, it's hard to push back enough to see the beautiful mosaic of the stained glass that God is creating in your life. That is so true. I've been doing ministry for 20 years and I've seen things that I would never wish on any of you. I've officiated too many funerals where the casket was little. There should never be a little casket. I've had to say goodbye and bury some of my really good friends. I've seen marriages that I thought were unbelievably solid, ripped with divorce. And I've seen addiction take really, really great people from this world. And in those moments, man, life just seems like I'm pressed against a stained glass window and all I can see are the cracks. And this is where trust, do I really trust that God is doing something with all of the cracks? I just cannot see it yet. This is the moment for Job. He's lost everything. His face is pressed against the cracks. But when you read the rest of the story of Job, because Job is human, he starts to hurt and he starts to ask God questions. And what's interesting about the rest of the book of Job, God never answers one of his questions. Instead, God's like, you got questions for me? Oh, I got questions for you, Job. And for 40 chapters, God asks Job questions. Let me give you one sample of this. Job chapter 38, verse 4. God says, Job, where were you when I laid the earth's foundations? Why don't you tell me if you understand? Who marked off its dimensions? Surely you know. Who stretched a measuring line across it? Or what were its footings set? Or who laid the cornerstone? While the morning stars sang together and all the angels shouted for joy? Who shut up the sea behind the door when it bursted forth from the womb? When I made the clouds its garment and wrapped it in its thickness? When I fixed limits for it and set doors and bars in its place? When I said, this far you may come and no further. Here is where your proud waves halt. Have you, Job, have you ever given orders to the morning and or shown the dawn its place, that it might take the earth by the edge and shake the wicked off of it? Whew. That's just a sample of the questions that God has for Job. You know what he's doing? He's trying to help Job. He's trying to help us understand that we really cannot comprehend his ways. That Isaiah is right, God's ways are higher than my ways, and it will reveal our trust. And so in these moments of pain and suffering, what we want to know is why. Why did you allow this to happen? But what he's telling Job is even if you knew why, it wouldn't help. Can I please pastor your heart for a second? Even if you knew why, it wouldn't bring back your daughter. Even if you knew why, it wouldn't change the heart of your ex-spouse. It wouldn't negate the fact that you still were raised in that family with that abuse and that trauma. So there's another option. Instead of asking why, let's look at who. I gotta focus my attention on who God is. And so here's the application. When you're going through a time of pain and suffering, the invitation is to stop looking around and to start looking up. Stop looking around, trying to find the answers to the why that you will never find, and even if you did, it really will not help. Instead, focus on the who of who Jesus truly is. See, Job was able to respond and worship in chapter 1 because he was focused on the who. But again, because Job is human, he started asking his friends. As months go by, years go by, why did God allow that to happen? What did I do wrong? Why is God mad at me? I thought I did everything right, and his so-called friends were trying their best, but they gave him broken, fragmented advice. Even Job's own wife was like, God isn't good, that's why, Job. You know what you need to do? You need to curse God, and then you need to die. What a lovely woman. What a lovely woman. But you know what? In these moments of pain and suffering, that is when we are the most susceptible for the enemy's deception. Come on, lean in. That's when our hearts are most likely to be deceived because we'll go to anybody, tell me why, any mystical belief, any theory, any idea. I want to relieve the pain. I need to know the answer why. But it's in moments of pain and suffering, that's when you need to be in the house of God the most. Shoot, that's when you need to be on the front row worshiping God with tears coming down your face. Even if you can't sing, let this team sing it over you. Even if you don't want to hear this word right now, let the word be preached over you. Even if you don't want to go to your life group, get around them good people. That's when you need it the most. Yeah, in your life. Because if not, the enemy will deceive you and push you away because he knows that you're susceptible in your emotions. So stop looking around. And the invitation is even better. I think it's to start looking up. So as we close, here's what happens when you look up. This is the promise of the Bible. Number one, you will see that Jesus is with you. When you look up and not look around, you'll see Jesus is with me. Psalm 23, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. Why? Because thou art with me. The Bible says that God is close to the brokenhearted. This is the message of the gospel. That God is constantly moving towards hurting, broken people. And I'm telling you, because I've lived it, when I look up, I begin to see more of Jesus. And then finally, number two, nothing is wasted. When I look up, it allows me to push back a little bit from that stained glass window, and I will see that nothing is wasted. I think it really does come down to, do we believe what God said in Romans chapter 8, verse 28? If you've been in church, this is very popular on subjects like this. Paul says, and we know that in all things, have you heard this? God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purposes. I mean, just exegete that text real quick. We know that in all things, God works for the good of those who love him and have been called according to his purposes. Paul says, notice, God works for the good of all things, not each thing. So there are going to be things in your life that are going to happen to you that are not good. But the faith and the trust is that the culmination of my life, all of my life will be for God's glory and for my good. It reminds me of this. Let me illustrate this. So if you know my wife, Emily, you know that she loves to bake. Loves to bake, been baking her whole life. Well, she's passed this love and passion for baking down to our middle daughter, Rosalie. So they're always up in the kitchen baking something. Not too long ago, they were in the kitchen making homemade chocolate brownies from scratch. All right, none of this pre-mix box, Sara Lee, just add water. Get that out of my kitchen. I mean, we're talking like real ingredients right from scratch. So one of the ingredients in chocolate brownies, you may know this, is cocoa powder. Now, cocoa powder is very deceiving because it looks like chocolate, smells like chocolate, but if you've ever tasted cocoa powder, it is about as bitter as it gets. Now, Rosalie did not know this at first. So when mom turns her back, she grabs a spoonful of cocoa powder, and I'm telling you, the moment that cocoa powder hit her tongue and she felt that bitterness, she puffed out a cloud of cocoa powder. And she goes, Mom, we can't put that in the brownies. And Emily's like, baby, wait to the end when we put everything else in. I feel like Rosalie got a lesson that day that I want us to grab onto. That you've got to stop judging the outcome of what God is doing in your life based off of sampling one ingredient. If there was ever a central theme to the life of Job, that's what it would be. Don't give up on God's goodness because of one season of your life. How do we know this? At the very end, Job chapter 42, verse 12. The end of Job's life says this. So the Lord blessed Job in the second half of his life. Hold up. Even more than in the beginning. How is that even possible? Remember how blessed Job was in the beginning? All the land, all the cattle, all the wealth, all the kids, all the prestige. He loved the Lord, and God said, I even blessed him more in the end. Why? Because that's how good I am. You can't outgive me. I'm just that good. And I feel like God wanted me to encourage somebody today to tell you, stop judging the outcome of your life by sampling one ingredient. Don't give up on the brownies because of the cocoa powder. Because when you add in the eggs and the milk and the flour and the butter and the sugar, and we're in the South, and more butter, and then you give a dab of that vanilla. Don't sleep on the vanilla. And then you put in the cocoa powder and you stir it and you mix it up all together and you put it in the oven and bake it at the perfect temperature. That's what creates that chocolate gooey brownie that you and I crave to have. And I feel like God wanted me to tell you today, stop sampling the hurt before it goes in the bowl. Stop sampling the pain before it hits the bowl, and the rejection and the loss and the feeling of being out of control. Because when God adds in his mercy, somebody help me preach, when he adds in his love, and when he adds in his grace, when he adds in his timing, when he adds in his perfection, you really do see Romans 8:28, that in all things, come on, say it with me, God works for the good of those who love him. Come on, do you believe that today? You believe? I can't clap for you. Yeah. So here's what I love to do. I just love to invite you to stand all across this room, additional seating as well. Let's just stand together, and we're gonna have a moment right now before you leave. We did this intentionally with a couple worship songs on the back end today. So you can have just a few moments to start looking up, and maybe just admit I've been looking around way too much. And so I'm just gonna focus on who God is, and maybe you're really battling with something and your pain, and you got some brokenness in your life. Well, we're gonna have a prayer team that's gonna come down front. They'll be around the sides, and I know that might be weird for you, but unfortunately, in American culture, that's weird, but that's normal in the Bible. And we're just trying to be a Bible church, and there's a community of people that love you and love to pray for you, and I don't know what it is that you're going through. And maybe it's not even anything you're going through, but somebody in your life is going through it, and you just want some intercessory prayer on their behalf. They're gonna come down during these songs, and additional seating as well. We got people there ready to pray for you. And just let somebody minister to you and pray over you as we look up instead of looking around. So Lord, right now, that's what we're coming to do. I can't even imagine the hurt that's going on right now. I can't imagine how some of us have just been deceived because we're so desperate to know why that we've compromised so much of our beliefs and values. We've tasted the cocoa powder before you mix in everything else. And so, Lord, we just humbly come before you now, God, ready to receive. And God, we're going to worship you through pain, worship you through tears. We're going to trust that you are a good God, that you're going to do something in this, and that we live in this fallen, broken world, but it will not have the last word. So that's our hope, that's our victory. So right now, as we come forward for prayer, as we worship you, Jesus, may you receive our hearts of worship as an act of gratitude. We love you. It's in your name. Amen.